And hi everyone, how is everyone doing? Happy Friday. Let me just send a link here so that way people know that I am streaming and I am live and you all are all here. Alright. Alright. I've completed my task. Hello everyone. Hello. I don't know if I like the hair behind the ear, but like I kind of want to do it, so we're doing it that way. So hi, thank you all so much for waiting for me. Hello Nikki, hello Keylight, hello Steve, hello Rom, hello Rose, hello Nathan, hello Cicero, hello Mr. Sven, hello Jonathan, hello Suburbia, hello Cicero again. I think I read that name twice. Hello Audrey, hello Allie, hello Knife Roomba. That's a great one. Knife Roomba. That's a very dangerous variety of Roomba, for sure. Hi Josh, hi Marianne, hello everyone. So, today, how is everyone doing? What is going on? First things first, again, as always, this is an 18 plus only live stream, so if you are not at least 18, please do not be here. If you are a teenager and you're exploring BDSM, I get it. It's not that I think you're stupid or you don't know what you want from life. It's just, I do not like to facilitate minors and adults interacting, and so we just keep this to adults only for your safety, my safety, everyone's safety. And when you do turn 18, you are, of course, allowed back here and allowed to be active in the chat. And if you are new as well, please do read the rules and the FAQ down below. I am actually in the process, by the way, of doing my yearly update of the resources list for recommendations for books to read and things like that. So that will be updated shortly. But for now, if you do have questions like, where can I buy a flogger? What books do you recommend? How do I get started with polyamory? Whatever. That is down below. I have been doing these live streams for a long time. So if you do have some more kind of intro level, like what is BDSM questions, I do have those resources down below for you to check out. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully I am sounding good, the audio is good, and we will get into it. So for today, this is an interactive BDSM Q&A, so if you want to ask any questions about BDSM or kink or polyamory or asexuality or any of the things that I talk about on my channel, you are, of course, welcome to ask, or you can just talk about whatever, right? If you want to know what my favorite type of pie is, you can also ask me that if that feels more comfortable for you. But today, one of the things I have been working on is I have been working on a yes, no, maybe checklist, because I was looking around at ones to recommend to a friend of mine that is getting started in BDSM. And I was like, oh, let me find the one that like I used when I got into kink originally. Because I remember I was sent one by somebody that I was going to play with. And I remember it being really detailed. Like I remember under the category of like the letter C, there were like 4 different things involving chains, like chain suspension and wearing chains. I was like, it was very detailed. And I couldn't find that one again. So I'm making my own right now. And at present count, I think I have 198 198 items on the checklist. So I'm gonna work on that tonight maybe, and hopefully that'll be out there. But as part of making that, I've had to look into some more unusual kinks that I don't always get a chance to talk about, and so that kind of was on my brain. And then also just some, like, you know, thinking about a yes no maybe checklist as a beginner thing for somebody starting in BDSM. Like, okay, there are things on the list that are like pretty advanced, right? Like cold caning, let's say, right? Not generally a newbie thing, but it is on the list. However, there are other things like silk blindfolds that maybe make more sense for a new person. So I thought, because I haven't really visited the subject of, you know, beginner particular kink stuff in a while, we could also talk about that if people want to, but it's really up to whatever it is that you have questions about. And also, I do have a kettle. This is my nail polish topper I've been fiddling with, but I do have a kettle going for tea, so I might have to go grab that in a second, just FYI. We're having chai Ribus, I think is what it's called. It says it's not caffeinated, so I don't think it's technically really chai. But it is spicy, and I like that. I like that in a hot tea. I'm glad the live stream today because I already got a question to do with the mistress I'm seeing online. Well, I would be happy to help you with that, Keylight. So I would be, you know, I don't know if you ended up asking yet. I'm going, by the way, I do answer questions in the order they come in. So if you want to ask your question, do it now. Because if it gets towards the end, I tend to get a bunch right at the end and then it's really hard to get to everything. Also, I feel like kind of this is like my everyday makeup that I've been going for recently. It's not really anything fancy, but I got like this very particular brown eyeshadow in a palette, and I feel like it just works really well. And a new eyeliner pen, because I'm never happy with the one that I have. Forever searching for the best eyeliner pen. Yeah, I've really been enjoying the new Discord setup. I feel like it works really well. And I think actually having the emojis makes it easier for me to like look at what category I'm on. But it's been really good. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. Are you a fan of Meat Canyon? Didn't he do a thing with Trisha Paytas? If it is who I think it is. Okay, I definitely remember I recognize the Nikocado one. I remember people talking about that. But I swear there was one with Trisha Paytas. Oh my god, yes, there was. Yes. Yeah, that's my only point of reference. So I don't know if I find like body horror and like gross out stuff to not really be my thing. Like it's not like in terms of horror movies or anything like that, not really my jam, but I can appreciate that not all art has to be beautiful. Something like that. All right. Also, I appreciate your advice from last week. Yeah, totally, Alex. Glad I could help, or hopefully. Hopefully I could help. That's the goal. Okay, good question, Marianne. Do you know, and what is your opinion of the Crow Academy and Master Arcane? Thank you. I've actually done an interview with Master Arcane, and then Slave Daphne is, I think, who it was. It has been several years at this point since I last interviewed them. But I did an interview actually with them on my channel that was like 3 hours long or something, and it's called like Romantic BDSM, and that was sort of the subject. Was we went over their overview of how they feel about like their way of doing power exchange and finding partners and stuff. It's definitely a very particular thing. Actually, I've had the Igniting the Fire book in my like to buy list for a really long time, but because I feel like it's meant to be read as like a hardcover book because I know there's a lot of photos in it. And the Kindle version is like half the price, but I don't know if the Kindle experience would be as good because I can't see a preview of it. I don't know what it says in like the Igniting the Fire book that they've come out with, but as far as like my limited previous experience with them, I think they have a particular way that they enjoy doing their power exchange, but I think they have said generally helpful things and generally good advice, and I like the conversation I had with them. But I don't know if you wanted to know something in particular, like I don't necessarily follow like content they come out with super closely, but the stuff I have watched I've agreed with generally. I have not seen the show Sex Education. I don't really like watch TV shows that much, and when I do, it's almost always something that a partner wants to watch. Like, we're gonna watch all of Star Trek The Next Generation. And that's how it goes. Like, I wanted to watch The Sopranos for a while and I haven't yet. I just don't ever like. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, honestly. Like I keep up with my favorite anime, and then I like listen to YouTube videos in the background, and that's my main method of media consumption. Say that 5 times fast. Main method of media consumption. When you're done with that checklist, can you share it with us? Yeah, it'll be up on my Patreon. It'll just be like the $1 and up tier. Because like I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna end up stealing it. Like, to be honest, I don't know. There's never really an easy way to like share like on YouTube stuff like that, because it would need to be it would be a file you'd have to download to be able to print it out and then, you know, write on it or maybe fill it in. I mean, I guess you could fill it in with if you have like an Adobe product, maybe you could like fill it in on a computer. But there's not really like a way on YouTube to do that easily, you know. I don't know what you mean by kitten play supplies, so you'll have to be more specific about what kind of thing you're looking for. Because that could be anything from butt plug tails to collars to socks that have cat paws on them, and I need to narrow it down a little bit. What is your favorite flavor of pie? Well, the answer is I don't really like pie, but I do enjoy like cold fruit pies. Like, and if I say enjoy, I mean like I like the most. I'm definitely more of a cake person than I am a pie person. But if I'm gonna have pie, because it's the only option, I would rather have a cold fruit pie, like a cold cherry pie that's got like a Jello type filling in it, because I don't know, I don't like hot fruit. Basically, that's really the problem. And probably like a chocolate pie, like a chocolate cream pie. I hope that's not a euphemism for something, but it probably is. I feel like weird kinks aren't bad. People conflate weird and bad, but you have to remember that whenever you're doing BDSM, you're already weird to the majority of the population. So outside of the very fringe extremes of like, is this even really technically BDSM or is it just abuse? Like, for the most part, like I feel like almost every kink is like, I don't know. I try really hard to not have bias about like particular kinks. I might not like certain phrases or think that certain descriptors are useful. Like, I'm not convinced that like the gentle dom versus hard dom divide is particularly like useful in the long term, because it's so individual that you end up having to negotiate what that means anyway. So then, like, why put out the term anyways that makes people assume, oh, you said you were a gentle dom, so I thought that meant you didn't do impact play. Oh, you said you're a hard dom. I thought that meant that you wouldn't have any feelings for me, and this would be no strings attached. Like, it ends up just being, I think, causing some additional issues as a result. But like for actual like kinks themselves, I try not to be like super judgy about it. Oh, it's so funny you asked me this, Midnight Lily. I was literally looking up floggers earlier today. Actually, question for the chat. I am on the lookout for a horsehair flogger. And I've had a really hard time finding one that meets the like quality standard that I would want for a flogger. I know if I go on Etsy, I can find horsehair floggers, but like usually the ends aren't like trimmed evenly. And I know there's somewhere in the Midwest, I want to say Wisconsin or Minnesota maybe, there is a shop that is called Whispers of Fire that I very much enjoy. They actually sell at it's a local store, but they also have online inventory that's called the Tool Shed Toys. And they make really, really good quality stuff. And I was hoping to get a horsehair flogger from them at some point, but they're not taking custom orders right now. And so it's been really hard to find one, because I feel like it's a really unique sensation, and it's something I'd like to have in my bag, especially because with the way that, and I would have to ask the vendor this as well, as like how they source their horsehair. Because a lot of horsehair floggers, like most of them, the horsehair is sourced by like just brushing the mane and tail of a horse. It doesn't require the animal like die as a result. It's just a part of like normal animal maintenance essentially, which I feel like is, you know, better than some alternatives. So I've wanted one for a while, but I would really love to go to an event in person and like actually try one from a vendor, but I'm not going to Kink Fest this year. I don't know what other BDSM conventions I would go to in person that would have vendors at them. So I am just waiting. But that being said, the question that Midnight Lily asked was, ever seen a lambskin flogger used? What are your thoughts? Seems super relaxing or for a rump. I have a lambskin flogger that I could show you, but I'm kind of worried about YouTube freaking out about that. I guess I could always cut the clip later and after the live stream is done. But I will say, just for the sake of answering your question, I really like lambskin floggers. I think floggers are a really good way of having a style of scene where you start out very slow and light and sensual and really, really, really warm up before you go into the harder play, while all still using the same type of instrument, like staying using a flogger the whole time, where you start with maybe like a smaller deer skin or a lamb skin. You do that for a while, then you start to use that harder, then you maybe move into an elk, maybe then you move into, like, depending on if you like more of the sting or more of the thud, then you move into different types of floggers from there. And so I think they're really nice. I really like the feel of the lambskin flogger that I have. I think it's even lighter than deer is. Like, it's thinner. It's very, very light. The thing actually, the other shop that I like shopping from a lot actually is Firebird Leather. They're based in California, and I believe they are going to Kink Fest and vending, but I don't remember for sure. And they have a bunch of different types of floggers as well, and they occasionally, not as a build your own, but they do occasionally make lambskin and calfskin floggers as well, which I think are like that very, very, like, if you're going to buy a flogger and you are very worried about it being painful and you're like, I don't want to do any pain, I just want light, sensual, you can use a lambskin or a deer or some types of calfskin. You can use those as hard as you want to, and unless your aim is terrible, it's very hard to actually produce a sensation that's like painful. So I really like them, but I think if you already own a deer, you don't necessarily need a lambskin flogger too. It's a personal preference. By saying that, though, I do think Whisper of Fire does offer does make a flogger that is lamb suede on one side and then like a furry, not a bunny fur, but a different kind of flogger, like backing on the other. And that one's also really good. Also, fur in general is also really good, like light warm up flogger. But that's the problem, is like, if you're looking for vegan products for BDSM, and like rubber floggers are just painful. Like, they can be stingy or thuddy, but they're heavy toys. They're like high impact. They're not gentle warm up toys, and that's something that like is hard to do if you're looking for kind of that softer material and staying things vegan. Most of the floggers and leather things I've purchased over the years have been before I went vegan, and so that's, we can have that conversation if you want to. Personally, if I'm not buying from a large company and I know that I am supporting a local member of my kink community that is sustaining their livelihood off of making toys for the kink community as a kinkster themselves, like, I am for that community support, and so I am fine like buying a leather flogger from them, because it's not like it's different if you're buying a leather flogger from Amazon or like some giant ass huge company versus like an artisan that's literally sitting in their workshop every day. They're picking out all of their own leather, picking out all of their own supplies, making it by hand themselves, doing all the customer service, and being a member of the community at the same time, not just like somebody who got into making floggers because they thought they could make money off of it. Like, they also enjoy doing kink stuff, My partner and I haven't been able to do any character scenes, by the way, but I've been caning her and she likes ravishment, but it would be cool to do more now thank me type stuff. We'll get there. Yeah, for sure. Take it one scene at a time. It sounds like things are going well right now, though, and that's what we like to see. Does not having any prior sexual experience make it more difficult to get into BDSM? That is a very interesting question, Allison, and the answer depends on if you want to do sex as part of your BDSM. Because if you are hoping to have a combined sex and BDSM experience together, like, you want to do BDSM and at the end you want to have vaginal sex or give someone a blowjob, or you want to be penetrated as part of a scene or something, if you are going into that not having any sexual experience, the reason why it's a problem is not necessarily because you're a virgin. By the way, kill that idea. The concept of virginity is silly. It's just silly. Don't even really need to think too much about that. It's just silly. It would be more difficult because you are then trying to combine a lot of new experiences at once, which can be very emotionally intense. And that can just be, again, it can just be overwhelming. You're just increasing the danger level of potential negative emotional fallout when you are doing a bunch of new things at once. But if you don't want to do sex with BDSM, if you just want to do a flogging by itself, or caning, or power exchange relationship, or pet play, you don't need to have any previous sexual experience. I think the advantage of having some sexual experience is really about having relationship experience in general, going through that, knowing how to have difficult conversations with a partner, negotiating what you like and what you don't like, being able to practice saying no in an intimate setting. Like, those things can be helpful, but you can also learn those things doing BDSM. And as long as you're doing things, ideally in like a public dungeon setting, you're going to BDSM classes, you are, taking things cautiously and slowly and being upfront about your experience level, then I don't think you necessarily have to worry about like, oh no, someone's, going to be weird because I haven't had sex before and that disqualifies me from doing BDSM. I don't think that's true at all. If anything, I would just be really wary about people that either, one, are specifically like brushing you off because you don't have sexual experience, or two, or are specifically really excited that you don't have sexual experience. You want somebody who can take it in stride and be like, oh, okay. And what does that mean for you? What are you hoping to get out of this experience? Knowing that you don't have any previous sexual history. Like, I think you want someone who's kind of just middle of the road as far as that goes. Not judgmental either direction. But I don't think you have to have, people debate about whether or not it's really that helpful. As an ace person, I definitely had previous sexual experience because I dated people who weren't also asexual. So I went into it kind of knowing things about sex, but they are different skill sets. So like, just because you've given a blowjob before doesn't mean that you're going to be like any more natural or better at doing BDSM. It's really about learning those communication skills. It's really about learning how to say no, stick up for your boundaries, and vanilla sex is usually where people get those skills first, but it certainly doesn't have to be the case. Okay, I am going to check on my tea really quickly and also turn off my wall heater because it's hot now. So give me 1 second. Alright, we're back with the tea. It has been obtained, and I checked, and it does not have any actual chai in it. The chai in it is cinnamon and ginger and other assorted spices, so. Which is fine, because I can't really handle caffeine that well, and decaffeinated chai tastes like garbage, so. Oh well. Yeah, and I wanted to mention this too about the sexual experience thing. So the people I know in at least my local community are not judgmental about like if you've had prior sexual experience or not. I think a lot of people will probably assume that you have, but they're not necessarily rude about it when they find out that you haven't, and they're usually understanding. But your mileage will vary because every local community is different, and I could definitely see a community where people are like, oh, you never had sex before, well, blah, 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 you know, which is just, again, it's just silly. Any thoughts on period play? Oh, I didn't put that on my checklist. I should put that on my yes, no, maybe checklist. So I feel like every individual person's going to have their own opinion about this. Also depends on what you're doing with it. Like, some people are like, I use a diva cup and then I make my male submissive do tampon training when I'm on my period, and then I pour my period blood on his face. Like, that's a thing that some people do. Is that necessarily the most common? No, because that can mean anything from like having sex on your period to using the period blood for other types of play to the thing I just described, right? Like, I don't know. Some people, I imagine that would be really weird and gross, but I don't think in general it's like that strange. I think it just, in my mind, I mostly associate it with sex things. So, I am not, like, I've never, okay, I'll put it this way. I have heard of it before. Because it's called, like Ruby, for example, is, like, one of the nicknames for it. I've heard of people doing it, like, on the internet, but I don't know any of my friends, anyone in the scene that's been like, oh, yeah, I did this scene involving my period blood. Like, I don't have any, like, personal examples to draw from about, like, oh, this is how people do this thing. So I don't know. And I haven't, because that's not an interest I have. And I feel like it is more of a femdom thing. I feel like it's more something that it's like a female dominant, male submissive kink. But I guess you could do it another dynamics. I'm just not sure what that would look like. Okay, so okay, this is like multiple parts, so like give me a second to make sure I read all this. Hi Evie, I have a question / I need a bit of advice. So currently, oh, are you using this one to refer to yourself? You don't have to do that in this chat, by the way. You can if you want to, but it makes it harder for me to read. Because when I say this one, it sounds like I'm talking about myself. I'm going to say I instead of this one, by the way. So I have a question / I need a bit of advice. So currently, I am in an online relationship with a mistress from the USA, and I watched your guide the other day on how to spot a fake mistress. After watching your video the other day, I got sent a picture from my current mistress, and I decided to image search her, and I found that she used an image from another website. I was upset at her, and I told her what you did, and she told me that she's a model. We voice chat a couple times now, and her pic looked like it matches her voice as well. She promised me that we're going to meet in person once I... Oh, and she get your eye surgery done. Okay. We agree to meet up in the next few years. What do you have any advice? I mean, it is possible, like, she could definitely, like, a lot of people that are pro-doms, like, do modeling, or they have their photos on other websites. It would be a red flag if, like, one of the photos had a watermark in it, and then, like, the photo that she used, like, was cropped to remove the watermark. Or if she, like, what I would ask for in that scenario is I would be like, cool, like, do you have a model release waiver or something from doing that modeling shoot if that photo came from a modeling thing? And also, like, it depends on what the website you found it on was from, because if it's from, like, a photographer's website that's like, here's my portfolio of my work, that's very different than it being from, like, www.superhotwomenphotos.com, and it's just, like, a bunch of stolen photos of hot women. Like, I don't know. I would, I feel like something a lot of people do with online dating, and I know this is different when you have a power exchange relationship, but a lot of people will ask someone to send them a photo with, like, you know, touch this part of your face, then send me a photo, or send me a photo that has the newspaper in it with today's date, or send me a photo where you're doing, like, double peace signs or something. You definitely can't go off of just, like, the voice sounds like it should match her face, because like some people's voices don't match their face. And like there's also the possibility of like using a voice modifier or being an actress and being able to change her voice. Like definitely other things that are risky in that. But also like you have to think about it. Is that the only warning sign? Because personally, I've considered a warning sign for things to only ever be over voice chat and her to not want to do video chat and not want to see you for years, because that's like plenty of time for her to take your money. She doesn't, like, if she says, oh, we're gonna meet in 2 years, that's plenty of time to get anything she wants out of you if she has bad intentions. So not saying that anyone has to meet, and like, you know, online BDSM relationships and, you know, online professional work is totally valid. It just like is an additional risk of like you don't really know who you're talking to. I guess I would think about like if she is on social media. For me, one of the big things is like seeing if she follows and is followed by other pro-doms. So like, you know, I follow probably like a dozen or so pro-doms on Twitter, and like they all follow each other, they all talk to each other, they all give each other advice. And one of the big ways you can tell it's a fake account, or at least a really new person, not necessarily always fake, but one of the big ways of being a red flag that it could be a fake is like if they have a social media account and they've got like 10,000 followers, but no one interacts with their posts, and also like none of the people who follow them are like other pro-doms, right? Or their username is like Sarah May 871596659 or whatever, right? Like one of those Twitter usernames where it's like a short name and then a shit ton of numbers at the end. That's usually a big warning sign as well. But again, it totally depends on the context. I would just be very, very cautious. And I know it's exciting when you meet someone that is compatible with you and wants to do your kinks with you and you're getting along really well. But meeting people online is really dangerous, in particular because of this. And I'm glad that you watched that video and you were able to kind of maybe see some potential red flags. But, you know, just be really, really cautious. I think I can't definitively tell you this person is 100% totally fake or 100% totally not, because I don't really have enough information to do that. What I would be worried about is if you kept searching for photos and kept finding them on different websites, and if they showed up with like, oh, look, the watermark got cropped out, or it looks like the image got flipped or whatever, like then that starts popping up red flags, you know? Because usually if she is like a model, she does modeling, she'll have like a Model Mayhem account, she'll have some kind of like other professional way of like talking to photographers, and if she doesn't have that, then like that's a red flag, because like photographers don't just work with random fucking people unless she's hired a photographer to do photo shoots with her to get photos for her website, which is different, because at that point you're paying for the photographer as a service rather than being a professional model, which is obviously two different things. Yeah, I think I mentioned this, Cicero. Ask for a pic of her holding up a current newspaper. Yeah, that's definitely something. Not everyone has newspapers, obviously. So I feel like that one's easy to make an excuse about, but it can also be like touching your nose or taking, like, you know, the other hand movements or gestures in and around a face. Like that's a pretty good way of, you know, at least seeing if it's the same person with more accuracy. It's hard to listen to those doubts when it comes to new potential intimate partners. It's almost always the right thing to do. However, believe in yourself, as hard as it is. It is true. It is always worth it. Like, okay, if it's a worst case scenario, right? Do you want to spend years being with someone when your relationship is based on a lie and they're not who they say they are? Or would you rather listen to your gut and be like, this doesn't seem right for me, I'm going to go look somewhere else, or I'm going to ask more questions? Because also if they get super defensive when you start asking questions to try to confirm who they are, like I don't know what your vetting process was like for this person, but if they get really antsy about you asking more questions about who they are, where they got their training from, other pro-doms they know, other things you may use to vet them, that's going to be a red flag, because they should be able to answer those questions. What is this one instead of I? Haven't heard that before. That is a thing. I don't know where that started from. I think it was probably on like internet relay chats and like Usenet and stuff. Is probably where it came from. But it basically is a way of like demonstrating a level of submission and like kind of verbal degradation by not referring to yourself as an I and referring to yourself as like sort of an object, basically. It's kind of like I think it's is more common. Like you like if you replaced it in that sentence instead of like I or this one, like that's I think something that more people do, but also you'll see that as well. But it is less common. Oh, Audrey, I do know. So, do you know much about vor/giantess kinks? Two different kinks. I will talk about both though. Or how would somebody would make a scene with that? Never really heard anyone talk about it. So those are two different things. But I would say, do we start with the vor or do I start with the giantism? Don't know. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so giantism, I'll start with that one because I think it's easier to define. Is giant there's like an Amazon fetish, and then there's also giantism, which I think overlap, but I think are also technically different. And essentially, it's a fetish that some men have, especially submissive leaning men, where the female, usually dominant partner, is like way taller and bigger than they are, and like the eroticism of it comes from the fact that there's a really big like size and power differential, like Gulliver's Travels sort of, but if it was a woman instead, that sort of a thing. Yeah, I guess that would overlap with vor if it's like the like I'm just thinking of Attack on Titan. That's all I can think of is like, yeah, like in Attack on Titan when you have the big giant titans and they're like grabbing the people and they eat and yeah, that. But vor is not necessarily implicitly about that. I don't personally have either one of these kinks. I feel like these are really like internet roleplay kinks. Like you can't really do them in real life without like I guess probably being high on hallucinogens and like committing a felony. So if you're looking to do them in real life, well, actually hypnosis would probably be the way that you would do that. I think a lot of these kinks that involve like either extreme body modification or extreme scenarios, like there's like ASMR hypnosis stuff you can look at on YouTube for like self-play, or if you find someone that's if you believe in hypnosis, I guess is part of this. If you are somebody that believes in hypnosis, this is definitely the sort of thing like a hypnotop could help you like create a scene around by having that image in your mind and following along with that image without having to try and recreate that realistically with the conditions of physics, more or less. So, but vor, there's non-fatal vor and there's fatal vor. I'm gonna just talk about the non-fatal vor because I don't want YouTube to delete this video, but you can imply by the word that's a fatal, end game state, a little bit more intense, a little bit more edge play. But vor is basically when you consume someone else, typically whole, especially if it's non-fatal vor. This is also related to like you're bringing back all my Tumblr memories. I know but there's also like unbirthing, which is like a different thing. Anyways, whatever those are. It's basically where you have a kink for consuming someone whole. And usually there's like body like distortion stuff is a part of this. That's part of the kink, I think, as well. But like I said, I think if you wanted to do this in real life, like some kind of hypnosis would probably be necessary, because like I don't think the vor thing you can like, you would have to either do some kind of hypnosis or you would have to do like some kind of sensory deprivation scenario where you were like basically reading out like a scene to a partner and like taking them on a mental journey through a scene versus like actually literally doing it, like doing kind of more of like a mindfucky sensory deprivation thing, because otherwise I can't think of how to do especially the vor part in real life. The giantism thing, You might be able to do if you kept the partner blindfolded, like the submissive partner that's not the giant. If you kept them blindfolded and like, I don't know, wore really big shoes. I don't know, I've never had to think about doing these things in person, but again, like I said, I think they are definitely more like internet role play, kinks, or I'm assuming there's like specialty porn for this, but I don't know. I like everything that I know about either one of these kinks is like hand-drawn like fetish art from Tumblr back in the day, and so I don't even know if they even make like live action porn that contains either one of these things, you know. Is that a light bright next to you? Oh, you mean this? No, it's not a light bright. It's a string fairy lights, but it is kind of like a giant light bright. Yeah, the hypnosis I think is my biggest suggestion. Yeah, the giantism, like unless you were able to get into a place, like the reason you do hypnosis is you'd have to get into a place of like suggestibility where like you could kind of suspend your disbelief and believe that these shoes are like size 25 shoes and this person's really much larger than you are and they're bigger than this house and you know all that other stuff. And if you can't suspend your disbelief and be more suggestible, then that's going to be hard to be believable, especially at the beginning of a scene, you know. I don't know why they don't have crust on top of pumpkin pie. I'm assuming it's because the filling in the middle wouldn't set if it had a crust on top. Like it would probably, because the crust I think traps steam, and so I think if the steam got trapped in the pumpkin pie, it would just keep it really soggy and it wouldn't set. That's my guess. I'm not a pie expert. I've never been on the Great British Bake Off before. That is a question for Mary Berry and whatever the fuck the guy's name is, the grumpy one. Happy Tails floggers. I know they make horsehair floggers. So here's my Happy Tails floggers story. You guys ready for a story time? So I found Happy Tails floggers before. Actually, I found them when they very first were making a website, and they used to be on Etsy as well. And they have really, really nice, super well formatted website. You know, a lot of people that make BDSM toys, their websites have literally not changed since, I swear to God, like 1998. Like they're just ancient. They're like plain text HTML, just bare bones, really hard to browse. But they actually had a really nice website format, and they had like all these different types of leather that I'd never heard of before. They had like this special kind of suede. They had some fucking like water buffalo or something, like things I had never seen anywhere else before. And so I did try to buy a flogger from them a couple years ago, and I just wasn't able. Yes, big stompy clown shoes, exactly. Listen, that's why you get a blindfold. You get a blindfold on them, and then you stomp around and you you do like Jack and the Beanstalk. Listen, the overlap between caregiver little and giantism is Jack and the Beanstalk. If you have a little has a giantism fetish, just put them on a bed, blindfold them, and then read them Jack and the Beanstalk while making sound effects. With Happy Tails floggers, sorry, getting back to that. I tried to order a flogger from them, and like their fucking website, like you can't actually order at the time anyways. They didn't have anything you could order from on their website. Like you had to contact them about it, and it took like they wouldn't get back to me like at all. Like they wouldn't. I would ask for photos, and then they would just like stop messaging me. Like they didn't have, like they had what looked like nice photos on their website, but like I wanted to see the actual product I was buying. I didn't want to tell them, make me this kind of flogger sight unseen, and then I'll pay you $300 whatever for it. No, not gonna happen. And so I never ended up buying from them. And then they had some stuff on Etsy for a while, but they didn't really do anything with it. Like they had some stuff on there, but they didn't really keep it that well stocked. And then on top of that, they closed their Etsy shop eventually. And I know they have a list on their, this is the point I'm bringing to now, is I know they have a list on their website of like available floggers, which they have some photos of. And this is kind of judgy, but like none of the photos look like good product photos, and they're all of like a lady like holding the flogger with like bare hands and like super long fake acrylic nails. Like, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like if I was serious about like manufacturing and selling floggers, I would cuz it's hard to see. Like, don't even have photos of all the floggers, but like they like you can't see all of the flogger in the photo, and like buy a light box. I don't know. Like, I'm sure they're fine. I remember their Etsy reviews being fine when they had an Etsy store, but like there's no reviews and stuff on their website. There's like out of context like customer testimonials that are hand selected, but who knows what that means. So like the flogger companies that I recommend and I buy from are all flogger companies I've seen in person. I've handled their toys in person, and I've talked to the vendors, and like I know who they are. I know who's making the floggers, and therefore I trust them more than random internet person that says they make floggers, supposedly according to their website. But yeah, I do know they make horsehair floggers. I don't remember them having any in stock either when I looked at their in stock list. I think LEVX Supply also makes horsehair floggers, but they have wooden handles, and I hate that. Like, I'm sorry, I don't like wooden handles on floggers because they're usually not weighted, and so I think with horsehair it'd probably be fine because they're pretty light, but like, I don't know, I'm just biased against wooden handle floggers. Plus, they never have a loop on the end. The like wooden floggers, they never come with a loop on them to be able to like hang them, which I feel like is like half the point of having a flogger, is hanging them somewhere. But anyways, search for bespoke horsehair flogger. I have. I spent like 20 minutes today looking at floggers. I would say that lambskin is fuddy. It's like too light. Like if you had a mop of lambskin that had like 100 or 150 tails on it, you'd probably be able to do that. Oh, thank you for.
Dickman donated $10. No question, just supporting. Also, shout out to Bandit.
Yes, she is. Did you hear the internet lady said your name? She's like, I'm sleeping. I'm so unimpressed. Ilmar said, just popping in for a moment. It's going to be a few months before I'm able to make a stream live. The guy who was opening Saturdays has been advised to seek other opportunities. Oh no. Well, good luck with the Saturday shifts. I never had to open any of the stores I worked at. I was always a closer. I was a closer at all the stores I worked at. But I get it. So I'm glad you could be here now, and hopefully maybe you can replay some later after you get done with work. But yeah. That's one of the things I really hated about, like, before I had, like, an office job and I was still working part-time, is never knowing what your hours is going to be. Like, every single week it was always different. It was always in the same window of hours, and it was never actually full-time, but it would be, like, 28 hours, and some days it would be 11 a.m. to 6, and some days it would be 7 p.m. to 11, and, like, it was just all over the place. It was just a hot mess. It could have also been because I was in a college town and they could just treat people that way because they didn't care about, people sticking around for very long. But I really wish that would change. Like, I think that would make such a big difference. Like, if people who work in food service and in retail could just, like, know what their schedule was for, like, longer than fucking 20 seconds, that would be great. How do you navigate when a person discovers your type of relationship, and thinks you are in danger / being abused? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Oh, that's a great question. So I think that it's definitely a delicate situation. It kind of partly depends on your relationship with the person. Like, if it's your parents, that's very different from, like, an acquaintance or like a third cousin or like somebody you don't have to interact with or don't normally interact with very often, but it's somebody you're really close with or like a best friend or a close family member, then it's like, okay, you do kind of have to get into actually like maybe explaining this a little bit more. There is a book that's a little bit older, and I've never personally read it, but I have heard good things about it, that's called When Someone You Love is Kinky. And it is a book designed to be given to people that are the loved ones and family members of people that are in the BDSM community, where you can just hand this to them, send it to them, get it for them via Amazon or what have you, and you give it to them, and then they read the book, and then it's designed to be like, hey, your loved one's into kink. That probably sounds scary, doesn't it? Well, don't worry, because we're here to tell you about how it's not necessarily scary. I should probably actually make sure this is still in print. When someone you love is kinky. Give me a second. I'm going to look this up. Oh, no, they still have it. And you can even... Oh, it's not as old as I thought it was. It got published in 2000. I thought it was older than that. I thought it was in the 90s. But in any case, you can also get it on the Kindle, so you can just like send it to someone's Kindle, I guess. So the description of it says, when someone you love is kinky is a book designed to help non-kinky folks understand and communicate with their kinky friends, partners, and relatives. Included are guidelines for dealing with the emotional turmoil of the coming out process, brief and non-threatening descriptions of the commonest kinks and ideas about why people enjoy them, suggestions for how to talk to your kinky friend or relative in ways that promote good communication, explanation of how kinky people keep themselves safe while exploring diverse sexualities, which I feel like is the most important section for this purpose, a glossary of commonly used terminology from kink communities, as well as a resource guide to help the reader further find further information and support. So that's sort of the synopsis of it. It's like $15 or something, depending on what version of it you get. So there are definitely options for sort of having a conversation with them without necessarily having to specifically talk to them. But the unfortunate part is a lot of people just think like BDSM point blank is abusive. They don't care what excuses you give or explanation, or if you detail them about how you do XYZ thing. Like, they don't care. They just think any kind of BDSM is abusive. If you're a woman who's a submissive and you are seeing a male dominant partner, that means that he's abusive, he's taking advantage of you, he's mind controlling you, he's warped your brain into thinking this stuff is okay, like this isn't feminist, blah 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 blah. Like, all of that stuff happens, right? I think it's a little bit easier when it's a female dominant and a male submissive, but especially with like male dom, female sub relationships, a lot of people just think it's like just automatically abusive and bad and negative. But I would just keep in mind, you know, a sort of a quick summary, and I wouldn't necessarily say it this way to a partner that didn't really know anything else about BDSM, but just because I think sometimes in these scenarios, when people bring this up, it can cause us self-doubt and think, oh, well, maybe we are really bad. Maybe this is really dangerous and evil and wrong and ungodly or whatever. And what I remember is that in BDSM, everything we do is negotiated and consensual and informed. It has to be those things, and if it's not, that is not what we aim for. That is abusive. And in BDSM, because we have safe words, a single word can always stop whatever is going on. Even in a relationship, even in a scene, a single word can stop what's going on. With abuse, no number of words that you say will stop the abuse. It may get your abuser to temporarily stop what they're doing. It may get them to transfer from the active abuse phase to the honeymoon phase and the apology phase. But the cycle will always continue to go on. Whereas in BDSM, if you say, red, stop, I never want to do this again, that thing will never happen again, right? And there is always, again, complete negotiation for everything that happens. Everyone involved is aware of what's going on. They actively agree to and want to be there. And when the situation changes, the relationship ends or the activity stops. And just because physical pain is happening doesn't mean that something is abusive, right? A lot of people think, oh my God, how could you want to hurt your girlfriend? How could you want to get a spanking? Isn't that so bizarre and so weird? And isn't that just abuse, right? We do things in everyday life that can be physically painful, and we actively elect to do them because we enjoy the results of that pain, right? People love boxing. People love all kinds of physical contact sports, wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, physically intense sports that maybe don't necessarily involve fighting but are really like high impact. Maybe people that do like really like heavy yoga stretching that can get into like painful territory, people that do really heavy workouts. Like, there are types of things that are painful and uncomfortable we elect to do on purpose. It doesn't mean that like lifting weights is abusive or that taking boxing classes is abusive. It just means that, like, we like a little bit of salt in our watermelon, you know? We like a little bit of something that can bring out the additional sweetness that's already there. And the contrast between the painful sensation can make the romantic, and this is like, I'm not saying this is always true, but this is like the easiest way to frame it to a vanilla person. If it, you know, don't lie, but I think this is easy to explain, is like, you know, that little bit of like physical pain can make the pleasure more enjoyable and more apparent. It can deepen the bond in the relationship. It can deepen those romantic ties and make those moments sweeter because of the contrast. So I think it's, you know, reasonable to be worried that, you know, someone may be in danger. But hopefully when they hear an explanation of the relationship and hear how, you know, everything is entirely consensual and planned and negotiated, you know, anything can stop with a single word. It's all planned. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone wants to be there actively and is choosing to be there. Hopefully maybe they worry a little bit less. The tea is a little bit colder than I thought it would be. Cassie asked, I may be relocating to a different state and was interested in knowing the best way to find a safe/good group to connect with. Thank you for last week, though. It gave me something to rethink. So, on the note of beginner stuff, this is a really great question, because the number one way, I think, to find new people to connect with is, say it with me, everyone, FetLife! Yay, FetLife! We love FetLife. So FetLife is going to be the best way to find groups. There are some other directories online that you can look for events on. The mall directory, but it's like it's like, what is the abbreviation for this? Oh yes, the Munch and Adult Local Links directory, aka findamunch.com. That one can be outdated and doesn't necessarily have everything on it, but if you don't want to be on FetLife, that is a way to find stuff. I don't really think there's a subreddit you could go to that really necessarily looks at this. I think FetLife is generally going to be your best option, you know, because that'll allow you to see, like, who's active in your local community, what sort of events do they have, are there groups you can go to, because even before you move to the new state, right, you can reach out, you can join those groups for, like, let's say you're moving to Connecticut. You can join the Kinky Connecticut Connection group on FetLife. I don't know if it's called that. That's just, if I was going with the pun for a name and I liked, you know, consonants, I would call it that. So you can join that group. You could say, hey, my name is Cassie, and I'm relocating here in a couple months, and I'm really excited about joining the local scene and seeing what it's all about. What sort of events are going on? What other groups should I join? And they probably even have in those groups already a directory for new people of, like, here's the local dungeons, here's all the other local groups you can join. Like, definitely browse those before you just go, hi, I'm new, please help me. Because usually they've already accounted for that elsewhere. I know your question is really like a safe, good group, but that's going to be really hard to determine from afar until you actually get there, because things can also appear fine online, and then when you talk to people in person, they're like, oh yeah, don't go there, it's ran by this guy, and blah blah blah. Like, sometimes you only really know until you go in person, because unfortunately, if you do you know, share negative things about a group or a person online, some people are very lawsuit happy and don't mind, you know, filing the occasional defamation lawsuit because somebody said they were a dangerous person on FetLife. So, you know, it can be hard to get that accurate information, but you can at least see, okay, where is active, where are people RSVPing to, you know, what sort of events look like they might be for me, even before kind of getting to understand better if they're safe for good, like, which is the dungeon that has the classes at it, which is the one that the swingers go to, which is the one that has the orgies at it, you know, all those little tiny details. But yeah, you're not necessarily going to get all the answers, but it'll at least get you started, and then maybe you'll start to make some connections, or Maybe there's a group that has online munches, you know, over Zoom or Discord chat or what have you, where you can talk to people even actually before you move, like over video on the phone. And then that can be a good way to also be able to sort of meet some faces, get some names before you actually move out there. That's what I would do, at least if I was starting from the same place as you. Are floggers the most gentle instrument for impact? The thing is, there's so many different types of impact that I don't know. I don't want to forget something that could potentially be lighter than that. That's still impact play. Like, I'm inclined, this seems like a smart aleck answer, but my answer I'm inclined to give is your hands, because I think it's the easiest to control the level of impact you're doing with your hands versus with the thrown implement, because you could do an impact play scene that's like, right, you know, like just barely soft, super, super soft, very light, just barely pressing the skin level spankings, right? You know, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It doesn't necessarily have to involve, you know, picking out the exact right material and size and shape and all of that business. So I'd probably say hands, but if you mean an instrument in the sense of like it is literally like a separate object from your body, I would probably say it's floggers. I would also say if you're using a crop and you're using like the leather tongue part of the crop at the very end, all of the crops I've used, the very top part of the crop that has the leather tongue on it is very, 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 very light. Because it's basically like just a single tail of a flogger, essentially, which I think is why. But I think, yeah, probably they could be. But at the same time, though, you can't make that statement absolutely about all floggers being the most gentle. Because I know floggers that are made out of bootlace and plastic barbed wire and have, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff on them that are, you know, are scratchy and intense and could draw blood and are super heavy and like feel like a Mack truck when they hit you. You know, so it's not necessarily all floggers are the most gentle, but I think if you get the right type of flogger, it can be. I highly doubt you'll have an answer to this, but do you know the official name to gum pain play? Like your gum line in your mouth? Um, well, you said gum pain, which is different from gum disease. I don't think that has an official name, is the thing. It's not like I don't know the official name. I just don't think there is one. I'm sure if you Googled for long enough, you'd probably find somewhere that's like the use of the Latin words for gum and pain put together, and we're gonna call it that, and then slap a philia on the end, add a little Greek in there, and then make it. That's the name for the fetish now, you know. I have several small creators I'd like to support, but I don't know how helpful small donations are. Is lowest tier really helpful? Is it better to pick less people to donate more funds? You know, I think different people have different models for this. I know, like, for example, some of the YouTube channels I watch, like The Cavernacle and The Jimquisition, which is now Stephanie Jim Sterling, for the record. They both have Patreon models where I think they both only have one tier and it's $1. And their model is just like get as many people as possible to donate only $1 and then promise nothing. And that's how they operate their whole, you know, their whole career is just like very, very small donations from a lot of people. But I think if it's a small creator that doesn't have a lot of followers, that's not really viable because if you only have like, you know, 1,000 subs on YouTube, even if you get like 10% turnover, but they all only pay you $1, like that's not enough money to actually like have YouTube as a career. So it depends. But I think anything is probably better. I know for me personally, I'd rather have more people on like the lower tiers, I think, because I feel like that's more sustainable than having like just continually relying on like 3 people staying at the top tiers all the time. Because I think that's the other thing as well. It's like people's life circumstances change, and so like I wouldn't want to, as a creator, be like dependent on like these 3 people are responsible for me being able to pay my rent. Like that would be really precarious. But that's me. That's my input. But I think for most creators, like they are genuinely happy about like any level of donation. And if you decide that's small or big or somewhere in the middle, that's totally up to you. And I think they are genuinely grateful no matter what option you pick. I don't know what a feather flogger is. Do you mean like cat toys? Like, well, you flick it around and cats chase it? I don't know. Oh, this is a good question. So, have you noticed any negative reactions from older people in the scene to younger new people? I'm 19 and I'm interested in joining the IRL community, but I'm worried about not being taken seriously because of my age. So, when I joined the scene, I was not that much older than you are now. I think I started when I was 20. And, oh God, it was like 7 years ago. Where's my life gone? Anyways, I I do not remember, at least. I lived in a college town at the time, so I'm sure this was part of it as well. But I did interact mostly with people who were in their, like, mid 30s and older, more or less. So the majority of my initial experience in the scene, and even to this day, in a lot of cases, is around people who are older. And it's almost kind of strange because I think in most other life situations, it's unusual to have, like, things in common with people that are, in such a different stage of life elsewhere. You're a college student maybe, and they're established in their career and they're married and they have kids and all of that, but like kink is something that you have in common. I've always experienced that older people are really excited about sharing their experience and their knowledge and making sure that that gets passed on, rather than like negative reactions. I think it's all about how you comport yourself, shall we say. If you are someone that goes into a munch and then decides, I'm going to show up to this munch and I'm going to wear all my pet play gear and my rainbow tutu and my onesie and bring glitter and have a magic fairy wand with me, and then scream at the operator of the munch to get my sippy cup for me and make sure it has make sure it has my favorite cocktail in it or whatever the fuck. Like, that's not going to go over well. Well, you're 19, so you wouldn't be able to get a cocktail anyways. All the munches I've gone to have, for the most part, at least had a bar area to them. So, actually, I haven't really met a lot of, under 21 but over 18 people, like, at munches, just because of, like, where they typically are held where I live. But, that being said, if you come on super strong and you ignore boundaries and you are being super obviously kinky in like a vanilla setting, in a munch, that's going to cause problems. But as long as you're not doing that and you're being like, a normal level of respectful, not like, you don't have to be like sir this and ma'am that or whatever, but like if you're just like a regular level of politeness, for the most part, people are going to be nice to you back. They're going to be welcoming to new people. They are going to be encouraging you and telling you where to go. The one thing I think you have to watch out for, more than like people being like, well, you're too young, you should be here, is actually people that are older and are specifically looking for younger new people to sort of mold in the scene. And they are looking to get to new people before they have other educational information, so that way they can be like, well, a true dom does this and a real submissive does that, because they want to eventually have you be part of their like BDSM household dynamic harem thing. That would be, I think, the bigger thing you'd have to worry about, is like just keeping your eye out for people that are like, kind of trying to goad you in one direction and sort of, doing the whole one true way bullshit at you because, they're a 45-year-old man and they really want to bang someone that's young enough to be their daughter. That just, I've been in age gap relationships a lot myself. The majority of my adult relationships have had pretty significant age gaps to them. But it is a little creepy to me when 45-year-old men that are like you know, very obviously 45 years old. You know, they don't look young. They're, you know, they're proud to be quote unquote cranky old men. Specifically go after every young, hot, blonde, skinny 18 to 19-year-old that enters the scene just because they want them as young as possible. Like, all right, I don't know if it's a masculinity thing you're trying to make up for here, if it's a midlife crisis thing, if it's because you like skating the line of legality. I don't know what it is you've got going on in your head that makes you want to do this so badly, but check yourself. That's my advice. All right. Asexual BDSM is something I see fairly regularly. While BDSM and sex tend to have a strong link, they are correlated but not causational. They do not have to involve each other. That is very true. You know, I am a person that is asexual and does kink, so I'm out there and I exist. But it definitely doesn't have to be sexual unless you want it to be. Gun pain, para coronophilia, pericornov. Why is that hard to say? Whatever. I'm not even sure if that's a real word or not. It's just in the chat. I'm wording the same thing, but from the opposite side. I'm 36. Mary, you're fine. You're like smack dab in the middle of the average age of somebody who does BDSM. Like, for the longest time, I was going to BDSM events, especially when I was in my very early 20s. I was always the youngest person there. I was always the youngest person at classes. I was always the youngest person at conventions. I was definitely the odd man out. And I think it's not really until you get into your 30s that you're really in sort of like the mid-range of most people that are doing BDSM stuff in public, because that's usually who has the like time flexibility, the income level, you know, and is more sure about what they want to be able to participate in BDSM. So like, even if you were like, I'm 56 and I'm getting into the BDSM scene, I'd be like, you're fine. Like, depending on, especially what part of the community you want to be in, like, you're not going to have any problem, like, meeting people. Now, if you want to do, like, you know, shibari or something, I think that is kind of a little bit of a younger person's game, just because there is sort of this unnecessarily strong preference for, like, tying up much younger people because they're like more agile and more flexible and whatever, which really just means more prone to overextension and injury, but whatever. But outside of that, like almost every community you can think of, and in the general BDSM population as well, like definitely the 30s is like no big deal. A lot of people don't get into BDSM until they're older because they don't have like the flexibility at work or the disposable income, or they have really young kids they can't afford a babysitter for, or they're in a monogamous vanilla marriage and then they get through the vanilla monogamous marriage and they get divorced, or the kids get older, or they have more income, or they have more free time. Like, it's very common for people to not either one discover they're into BDSM until they're older, or like actually have the ability to act on it until they're like, you know, past their 20s, you know. So that's totally typical, usual. I think if I probably took a survey of the BDSM community, I'd imagine the average age, depending on which section you are observing, is like somewhere between like 35 and 50. Oh, kangaroo leather? Um, Kangaroo leather tends to be really firm. They make whips out of kangaroo leather pretty often, but because kangaroos don't have sweat glands, fun fact, they don't have sweat glands, and it's a very low fat leather. So when it gets tanned, there's basically everything that's even left from like the very fine residual fat deposits in kangaroo leather completely goes away, and so it tends to be like pliable, but um, like not like buttery, I guess. Like, does that make sense? Like, it's it's not like latigo, but it's not like buttery and squishy in the way that like, you know, a moose hide is. Age and reactions to it in kink community tends to be less important than most people think. That said, there are negative stereotypes about young men being inflated know-it-alls. If you make it plain you're willing and eager to learn about the community in BDSM and explore like everyone else, and not try to say your particular kink is the one, sure, you'll do fine. Yeah, exactly. Like, a lot of people get really worried about like the age component of it, especially because I think age means more when you're younger. Like, the difference between like 15 and 18 is huge when you're a teenager, but then when you're like an adult, the difference between like 45 and 48 is like, who gives a shit? You know, it's all the same, really. You know, I do think, actually, I didn't touch on that, but I probably should, about like, I think if you're a newer, like, younger male dom getting into the scene, that can be really hard because a lot of people just will not trust you. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, there's good reason for that. There are definitely horror stories about, like, you know, younger male doms, air quotes, that get into the scene, and what they really want is sex, and they're there because they think that getting into the kink community will give them access to all the freaky chicks, and they'll get to do sex 5 times a day because they're gonna have a sex slave, and it's like, that's not how any of this works, but good luck with that. And or they will lie about their experience level, or they will be overconfident in things they have no experience in, which makes them very dangerous to play with. And so people sort of do paint things with a broad brush, and they make the assessment that any sort of new male dom is not to be trusted until proven otherwise. And part of the proving is going in a warm 95-degree drawer for 4 to 5 hours to get a nice full proof. No, part of the proving is, that was a baking joke. That was a bread making joke for y'all who didn't get that. But you know, the proving is going to classes, showing up for events, volunteering can be a really good thing as well, both as a way to meet people and sort of demonstrate that you're committed to being in a local community and you're not just like there to be a sex pest and you're looking for sex and looking for anyone. Please, God, find me a submissive that'll suck my dick. Like, that is what a lot of people think the kink community is about. And then for the most part, if it's somebody that only wants that and they find out, oh, the kink community involves like doing kink and not like just servicing my dick, well, that's not very interesting. I'm gonna go on Tinder again. Like, once they realize they're not gonna get what they want out of the BDSM community, they move on pretty quickly. So if you stick around for a couple of munches and you stick around volunteering and helping people and, you know, being interested in conversation, that will really, really go a long way. But it is unfortunate that a lot of people do treat, you know, kind of all young male doms with a broad brush, but I think there's also a reason for that. And you got to be able to beat those stereotypes. So that's my tips for beating the stereotypes. But yes, exactly. I think the same thing. I think a lot of people enter the scene in their 30s and 40s when they start to feel more comfy with exploring their sex lives more. Some people even enter the scene in like 60s and 70s. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely know a lot of retirees in the community because that's when you really have the free time and you've probably got a really long-term relationship that's like super secure and you know each other super well and you don't give a shit because you've gone through menopause. So like, whatever, like, you know, you can't get pregnant from anything you're doing, so who cares? Like, yeah, definitely. There's all age ranges, but I think people assume it's all like hot blonde 20-year-olds, but really the community is actually like average people in their mid-30s. Like, that's really it. All right, we've got like 40 minutes, by the way, just as a warning. I just feel really tired. I feel really tired all day. I was just like, I got very little sleep on Wednesday and on Thursday I got very little sleep, and I think it's catching up with me a little bit. TBH. Good point. On newspaper, assuming there is a power exchange and perhaps financial exchange, asking for less than $5 one-time purchase. Is that how much of newspaper is these days? My God. And hassle of getting a paper seems to be a sane screening goal. I think that's true. I think, you know, if somebody, like, also, there's, like, you can just do it for free. Like, you don't even have to buy a newspaper. You could just be like, do this particular thing with your picture and then send it to me, then I'll know it's you, right? Like, that seems, that's free. All you gotta do is, you know, put in the 5 seconds effort it takes to take a photo. Oh, I got booted to the bottom of the chat. Give me a second. I am trying to find where it was. Ah, there we go. Is the giantism fetish the same thing as macro micro? If so, not, what's the difference? I have no idea. I think I assume there is overlap, and my guess would be that giantism is a subset of the macro side of the fetish, but I'm not sure of the difference. I had this question last night, actually, and maybe someone here that knows more about this part of the BDSM community will know this, so I'll ask you all. Is there a difference between forced feminization and sissification? Or do they overlap a lot? Like, is sissification a subtype of forced femme? Because I could see where maybe, like, sissification is like a particular type of forced femme, but I think they're also, like, from my experience, they seem to kind of be used interchangeably for, if not the same thing, very similar things, and I don't entirely know what the difference is. So if you guys could let me know, I'd appreciate it. As a fan of macro, I'd say giantism is pretty much the same. The people have spoken. The experts in the audience have spoken. Oh, smothering fetish. Like queening? Or like smothering with a pillow? Because also those are two different things. You can sit on people's face and, like, not technically smother them. Giantism would probably be linked to desire for Annie and Attack on Titan. Listen, I do legitimately think with the popularity of Attack on Titan that, like, there's going to be an entire subsection of Gen Zers that, like, get awakened to a giantism / vor fetish in the next couple of years. TBH. Oh, yeah, absorption. True. That is part of vor. Sometimes it's like absorption. Sometimes it's like digestion. I don't know. It gets like, we get way out into the weeds on vor stuff. But again, it's very like flirting the line with what's okay to talk about on YouTube. So I'm not going to get into it too much. But Alex said I'm fairly into vor, but a big fan of absorption, which is kind of a weird one. I get that turn on need met with smothering and grinding in bed. So there you go. If that's part of what you like about vor, maybe that'll work for you. Tips for pet play scenes for someone who has trouble doing role play. Great question. So I'm assuming what you mean by that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like what you're saying is I have trouble getting into role play headspace, or role play feels awkward. And the good news is that when you are doing pet play, it can look any way you want, right? I'm going to use the example of puppy play because I don't know what kind of pet you are. And that's the thing that I know the most. If you are doing puppy play, a lot of classic scenes involve playing fetch and, wearing a hood, wearing a tail, wearing a collar, eating treats, doing trick training. And for someone's in their head and is feeling self-conscious about doing puppy play or is self-conscious about doing BDSM, that can definitely be something that's hard to do. And you're going to be like, oh, I feel so stupid doing this. This is so silly. I'm a grown adult. Why am I doing this? I get it. You don't have to start there if that feels awkward for you or you just don't feel like authentic doing that. You can do pet play stuff that is more like being like a human animal hybrid, right? You can be like a bipedal animal. The example I give a lot in videos is like like a Nico Mimi, like a cat girl sort of a deal, where it's like you are a human, but you're human like, at least, and you have human speech, but you also have like cat ears and a tail, so you can like act really cute, but also still be able to do most like human things, right? I think this is really compatible for things like service or like sexual play as well, where you're not really expected to be on all fours and chasing after balls or whatever, but you know, you can have kind of that cutesy like semi-pet thing going on. But also, like, if you have trouble doing role play, one of the big things that'll help you get over it is just doing it. Like, if you know that you're home alone and you're with someone that you care about and that you trust, you know, no one's spying on you except for maybe Google, you know, you're safe. You can do whatever you want. No one's judging you. No one's gonna, you know, make fun of you at school the next day. You know, no one has to know about anything that's going on. And if you can be really secure in that knowledge of like knowing that things that are private are going to stay private, and no one except for you and your partner has to, you know about, you know, and make sure you talk to them like about like if maybe them taking photos or video makes you uncomfortable, you know, make sure to tell them that beforehand as well, because maybe that could be provoking some anxiety. But if the barrier is like feeling uncomfortable or feeling self-conscious, that can be really helpful as well. But definitely let me know, because I feel like there's a couple of different reasons for why maybe it's like you have trouble doing role play. Also, like, you know, if I don't know if you mean role play in general of any kind, it could also be that maybe you haven't found the right pet persona for yourself. That's also a possibility. You maybe got into things thinking, you know, like when I was like the first week I ever heard about BDSM, I just assumed that I had to be a kitten because every female that talked about BDSM online, that talked about pet play, was a kitten. Every fucking single last one of them was a kitten. And so I just thought, okay, then I have to be a kitten. And I don't know shit about cats. I'm allergic to them. Like, I barely been around them except for like friends' houses, you know, when I was little. Like, I had no point of reference for cats. And then I found out eventually, thank God, you know, within that week, that I could be a puppy. Like, it would be unusual for the community that I was in, you know, but I could be a puppy. And there's also ponies, and there's bunnies and foxes and cows and raccoons and hybrid animals and dragons and leopards and whatever you can imagine, right? Anything you can imagine that's an animal could potentially be used in pet play. Some more commonly than others. But if maybe you found that you're in this box and thinking you have to be this one thing, you know, maybe you initially went towards puppy play, but maybe like being a little bit more wild and bratty and crazy, so maybe like fox play fits better. Or maybe you thought you would be into puppy play, but then maybe bunny play actually fits you better. You know, there's definitely options for other types of pet, maybe different types of role play that maybe feel more comfortable, and you haven't necessarily found that one thing yet. You're right. Oh my god. I forgot. I haven't mentioned the furries. Yes. Vor and like giantism and stuff is like very popular amongst the furries. That is probably why I remember seeing that on Tumblr, is because I had a couple of friends that were furries, and like I would see it when they would like reblog furry porn. They'd be like, God damn it. Why are you I don't want to see this furry porn. But they would she is snoring. It's so cute. She sounds like a little cartoon character snoring. My dog. She's being so sweet. Yeah. Is Fur Affinity still around? Is it like active still? Or has it like gone the way of MySpace? Mmm. History of Gay podcast has an episode on the historical context of, quote, Amazon women. It's delightful. Then they did a part 2 on Female Warrior Society / Miss 10 out of 10. Would recommend giving it a listen. All right. Duly noted. Oh, forced perspective, of course. I feel like that'd be hard to recreate on your own. But no, that makes sense. Oh, you actually can put crust in a pumpkin pie. Some pumpkin pies have had crust on them in the past. It simply fell out of fashion in the 19th century. I mean, I get it. I'm just like curious about like, because I always figured the difference between a pie that had crust and didn't was like it had to do with the cooking method. Now I gotta Google pumpkin pie with top crust. Oh, there's like lattice. I was thinking of like a full-on like one of those pumpkin like a pie crust where it's literally the whole thing is pie crust on top, and then it's like a little bit that's cut out of the center to make sure there's like a room for the steam to escape. But no, there totally is. A lot of people do like leaf designs, it looks like, and they decorate the outer edges with little leaves, which look cute. Or a turkey. Oh, that's cute. I like that. Lattice top pumpkin pie. Huh. Oh, there's a strudel top pumpkin pie. I feel like that makes more sense. Strudel? Do pies need a top crust? Oh, it prevents juice from spilling out. Especially when you're making a fruit pie, it keeps the fruit covered so the fruit can simmer. Again, I don't like hot fruit. Interesting. Well, there you go. Now we all know about pie. Isn't that wonderful? That's the content you guys come here for, right? Pie education. For sure. Okay, I think I did answer your question, Michelle. But if I didn't, let me know. If you haven't, I'm getting through the chat right now, and I haven't seen a follow up yet. But if I do, we will go into more detail about it. What's the best type of flogger? That is subjective. My favorite flogger that I own is a moose flogger. That's me though. A lot of other people like elk. Other people like cowhide, suede. Very individual. I just prefer something that's like, a little bit wider, high quality stuff, handmade. That's stuff I care about. And not a wooden handle. That's all I really ask for. No wooden handles, please. Please. Oh, interesting question. I'm going to my first drag show on Sunday. I'm super excited. Have you ever gone to one? If so, what should I know before going? So I've actually never been to a drag show before. My only experience with a drag show was I used to go to like a goth party that would happen here. Like it was like the first, one of either the first or last Saturday or Sundays of the month. I don't know, something like that. And the party for that would start at like 9 p.m. But before that, from like 7 to 8 or 6 to 8 or something, there would always be a drag show. And so sometimes they were still cleaning up from the drag show by the time the next event started. And so like people would be filtering out from the bar from the last thing before going in for the next thing. And I don't even think I ever saw any drag queens, actually, to be honest. So I've never been to a drag show, so I don't know. Don't really have any particular advice about going to one, but if anyone else goes to drag shows regularly, feel free. I just, it's not that I am opposed. I should be clear. Not that I'm, like, opposed to drag shows. It's just that, like, one, I don't really currently go to events, and two, in the before times, if I was going somewhere, it was to a BDSM thing. If I had the time to go somewhere. Oh, good. Yeah, exactly. People enjoy eating spicy food, even though it's painful. Some people enjoy it big time. That is true. A lot of people do enjoy spicy food, even though it is painful. And your mouth and your body and your stomach and everywhere is telling you not to eat it. And don't. It's bad. Red alert. Danger. danger zone poison, and you're just, I'm gonna fucking eat it. You can't stop me now. Mouth, like nerve receptors. I'm eating the dangerous poison. Oh, more poly than kink question. But is it wrong of me to expect more in the future than my partner agreed to when I know he'll be more comfy in the future and possibly more open to more things? Is it wrong of me to expect more in the future than my future partner agreed to? I don't think it is wrong to have hope that in the future you'll be able to do more things as you have deeper trust and deeper bonding in the relationship. But I do think it is probably unwise to have the expectation that someone will change something they agreed to based on like the relationship going on long term. Like, especially for poly people, I think there's one thing to be said for like relationships just growing in whatever direction they're meant to grow and not trying to restrict that in any way, but also like setting fair expectations at the beginning. But I do think that in general, especially in the poly community, people make relationship agreements. I don't know what your agreement was, but I'm just making up an example of something I think would maybe fit here. If somebody says, hey, I'm really busy with work, I've got these other partners, like, I'm really into dating you and I like you a lot, but I'm only really available for something casual right now. Like, they know based on their life circumstances that they're only available for casual stuff. And those circumstances may not change. And they may not want to have, more things. That's why they made the original agreement, right? I think, but the thing you can't have silent expectations. I think going like, oh, I know for sure in the future that when they get comfortable with me, we'll be able to do more. Like, I think it's better to leave the door open about like, hey, when we've been like dating for a while, I'd love to revisit, sort of our desires for this relationship and making sure we're still in alignment on that. But I think if somebody tells you that they only want to have a casual relationship, but you're secretly hoping that in the future you'll be able to be like their primary partner or something, that's going to be a potential point of like relationship failure and disappointment. But like things can change also, right? Like people can become more comfortable in the future with things and then decide that things that they originally maybe didn't want to do are okay now, or maybe they didn't really know what they wanted and now they've been with you for a while, so that changes. But I think the pitfall there is like, again, you're allowed to hope about things. You're allowed to, just you're allowed to hope. It's the expectations that somebody's behavior will change that I think is going to potentially run you aground. And I think, if anything, it'd be important to have a conversation with them about that, about like, do you think as we get to know each other and this relationship gets to be more steady and secure that you'll be open to more things? Because if they answer that and say, oh yeah, it's possible that things could change in the future, that's very different from them saying, no, I'm only ever going to be available for this. And I think it'd be better to know that up front, don't you think? No, I don't think your question sounded too harsh. I worded it very manipulatively. I mean, I definitely I'm cautious about that because I don't want to encourage any sort of manipulative behavior in poly. My boyfriend is my main right now, so no matter what, I'll stick with him, but a girl can hope. Yeah. Yeah, I gotcha. I think hope is whatever private thoughts you have about your relationship, about like, wow, I really like this person, I hope that we get to be super long-term partners, like, whatever. You know, it's the potential manipulation of trying to steer someone in a direction they may not want to go into that I think gets potentially dangerous. Do not negotiate for something today you know will be fighting to take further tomorrow. That slow shift of goalposts because you know is really dangerous. Source, I've seen that blow up marriages when the other partner never shifted further. Yeah, that's I think yeah, that's a good way of articulating it. Like, you know, I've had this happen for me personally with like my asexuality and people believing, well, not believing me, but believing that they could, you know, change me over time, or that if you know the relationship was long term enough, or if they did the right things and they pressed the exact right sexual buttons, that it wasn't really about it being my orientation that I do not experience sexual attraction, like basically hardly at all. Like it was just like it was like they secretly didn't believe that an orientation like was an orientation. Like they believed, oh, basically the idea of like you just haven't had good sex yet. You haven't had the right relationship yet. Like agreeing to be in a relationship with me based on the premise that I was asexual and kind of, oh yeah, that's fine. I'm okay if we only do XYZ thing. But then having the expectation that farther down the line, like, oh yeah, she'll be open to vaginal sex. Oh, she'll be fine to this particular type of anal. She'll be fine with this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, no, actually, I don't really want to do those things now, or 6 months ago, or 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, whatever it is. Like, I told you who I am and what I'm comfortable with now, like in the moment when we first got together, and now you are like surprised that I don't want to suddenly do these things, even though it's always been how I've been, and it wasn't like this was a sudden change. Very, very unfortunate. I think not even necessarily a conscious belief that people have, but I think a sort of a subconscious because of their own sexual experience that they're like, well, I mean, I don't really get it, but I bet that if I'm with her for long enough, she'll totally be into all this stuff. And, like, that's not really how it works. Which can definitely get frustrating. Not saying that you're doing that, but sort of giving my own example of the way that it can degrade a relationship for one party to, you know, verbally agree to the circumstances of a relationship at the beginning while silently hoping that things will change in the future without changing that, without having a conversation about that hope with the other person. The feather floggers are tickle sticks. Oh, do you mean like feather dusters? You mean like feather dusters, or like the single like really big like peacock feathers that people use for like sensation play? I was thinking of a cat toy. That's what I was thinking of. That may not be it. Now that you've said that, I'm picturing something very different. Listen, tickle torture is a legitimate kink, okay? And, like people think, oh, tickling, no big deal. Tickling can very much be a big deal. Actually, I haven't done a BDSM 101 video in a while. I should probably do one. It's been a hot minute. Instead, I've been talking about stealthing and pro-doms and public play and other such controversial issues. Maybe I should go and do a 101 video again. What do you recommend about how to handle an age gap in a positive manner? Not something I could answer fully in a live stream because the answer to that is very, very complicated and very dependent on the actual individual people involved and their life circumstances and their previous experience and blah, 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 blah. It's very complicated. But if you're in an age gap because you are fetishizing being able to have sex with the youngest partner possible, that's probably a bad sign. It's probably going to be a no-go. That is the one thing I will say for sure, without getting into the whole, potentially 30-minute diatribe about handling age gap relationships. If you specifically are like, yeah, I love that I get to have sex or do BDSM with this person and she's 15 years younger than I am. It's so hot that I get to fuck a 20-year-old and I'm 35 or whatever, right? Like, oh, yeah, 15. Okay. So, yeah. I just think that that's like, if you're doing that in your brain, then I think you gotta be able to admit to yourself, though you probably won't be able to, that what you're doing is perhaps not motivated simply because you happen to have a lot in common and you get along and you think that they're both funny, Well, I don't think that I'm very sexually inexperienced and generally pretty inexperienced with people anyway. So getting into the kink community is especially scary. People should stop being scary. Well, I don't think it's that scary. I think if you're just going to a munch and people are not playing, they're not even necessarily really talking about BDSM, I think that's a really great introduction, especially if you don't necessarily have a lot of experience. There's always going to be some level of scary and intimidating because it's a new experience and maybe it seems really, really important, which is all legitimate. But I think if you actually try it, it may be less scary than you're expecting it to be. Because I get really anxious about, like, especially, like, social gatherings. And I always get really nervous about, like, in the kink community, I don't at all anymore. I'm just, like, outside of maybe being afraid that, like, I'm going to get cornered by, like, a guy who's way older than me and I'm not going to have a friend there to, like, extract me. Like I'm in a video game or something. I get nervous about that. But generally, talking to people in the kink community, I don't get nervous about. But I do get nervous about like social gatherings in general, and I definitely worry about like, I'm not gonna have anything to talk about. I'm gonna be boring. People are gonna be, judging me, or it's gonna be awkward because I'm gonna have to avoid talking about my job and my hobbies and my relationships and being poly and da 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 da. I definitely it gets very stress inducing, but it almost always ends up being okay. What do you think about a beginner making your own toys? Seems like a little controversial thing. Um, I think a lot of people get into kink, at least somewhat, because they DIY their own stuff. Like I think that especially used to be more common. I would say maybe the reason behind that is like people are like, well, if you've never done anything before, like how would you know what to make and like know if it was good or not if you're not sure what like a high quality toy feels like or looks like. um but I don't think it's like a controversial thing that like people have very strong opinions about. It would just be like, oh, you haven't done a paddling before but you make paddles, interesting. you know because most people I know that like make BDSM toys tend to be like at least somewhat experienced people in the community. My goodness. Oh, girl. All right, we got 10 minutes left, by the way. So if you want to make sure to ask your question, do it now because I will definitely not be able to get to it if you ask in the last 2 minutes. So if you have held your question, now is the time to ask it as a warning before we wrap up today. Man, J.K. Rowling has just been like popping off on Twitter lately. She really needs to slow her roll. I don't know what's her problem. Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you've liked this stream, give it a like, please. That is actually helpful. I'm really bad about asking people to like stuff. But if you like the live stream, give it a thumbs up. I understand maybe why people didn't, because apparently it was at 69 likes for a while and everyone loves the jokes. So I get it. It is definitely easy to be intimidated online because people always show the good stuff. Yeah. Like, just remember, if you're seeing other people's BDSM relationships on the internet, like, it's never as good as it, like, is on the internet. You're definitely seeing a very, like, perfected, curated version online. It is not as perfect as it seems on FetLife all the time, I promise. You definitely can have moments of that, for sure. But 24/7, that hot and sexy and amazing and no one ever fights about anything? Probably not. Oh no, it booted me to the end of the chat. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying really hard to just like scan through and like make sure I'm not missing any questions. Okay. As someone who is in their early 20s and can't fully invest as much as I want to into BDSM just yet, how can I get over FOMO? I think the best way to get over FOMO is to prepare, which is, fear of missing out, by the way, for people who maybe don't know the abbreviation. I think the best way to get over fear of missing out is to focus on educational stuff that you can do right now. There are lots of books that are free on Kindle Unlimited. There are lots of free or very low cost online classes or blogs or podcasts or YouTube videos or whatever else, the list goes on, where you have the ability to sort of, I would think about it like if it was me, I would think about it like I'm preparing myself to be ready to do BDSM. So then when you get to the point where you can fully invest in it, you've got, maybe years of education and conversations and classes and information that you can fall back on. That means you're going to be so much more prepared to do the things that you want to do that a lot of other people are kind of stumbling their way through when they get into the community and are like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then they accidentally hurt themselves or other people, or they go really, really hard, really, really fast, and they burn out super quickly. And I think, if you frame it as like, I'm taking the opportunity to like educate myself first, then I think it won't feel so much like you're missing out. And also, like, you can make time, if like in terms of like, maybe you can invest some, but you can't fully invest. A lot of people enjoy, for example, going to like a really big convention once a year and having maybe like one like long weekend over a holiday weekend where, you have some time off of work potentially. You can go to a convention and be in the community and talk to people and meet people and watch scenes and go to classes and have that experience, even if you can't necessarily like go to the local munch every week or go to the dungeon every week or volunteer. You can still have that experience even if it does only happen, every so often. Yeah, what's the safe word? I think they definitely have an age gap, and that can be a good representation. But also in the gay community, I think age gaps are more common. Oh my gosh, yes, you're right. Oh my gosh, the Goop documentary that we watched on Patreon. Yes, that was great. And there was an older couple on the Goop documentary that was getting really into like pet play. Like it was so cute. Yes, anyone, any age can discover BDSM. It's fantastic. Looks like there might be a. Okay, so there's two parts. Before I ask my question, I'm fully aware that the advice is to talk to my partner. Good. But how do I tell my person I want to feel desired when my autistic self can't describe that feeling? Okay, okay, part two. Like, I know when I feel it, but I can't describe what that is or how to get there. Specifically, when my person is asexual with ADHD and can literally forget that sex is even a thing. Oh, okay. So it sounds like the situation is that you want to feel. Do you want to feel desired in a romantic sense or in a sexual sense? Because if your partner has ADHD and is also on the ACE spectrum, expecting them to give you a feeling of being sexually desired is like that's you just asking what I'm thinking of the sayings like asking a zebra to change its stripes, like probably not going to necessarily be possible for somebody who's asexual to make you feel sexually desired. Speaking as an ace person myself that has had that problem in relationships, because that would require they lie about their feelings. But if you mean like desired in a romantic sense, potentially, maybe that's part of the question is like, do you want to feel sexually desired where you like are attractive to them in a sexual way, or is it just like you want to feel like they're invested in the relationship and that they want to be involved with you romantically and build a life with you and other things? I understand not being able to describe the feeling, but I think if just saying that to them in a conversation and saying like I really enjoy our relationship, I really love it if we could experience together this feeling of like me being desired, and then maybe you can get more into like what the definition of the kind of desiring you're looking for is like, or like if you can remember specific examples of times when you have felt desired, because like I'm assuming you want the feeling again because you have a good memory of a time when that happened before. Maybe you don't know the specifics of exactly what got you to that feeling, or describe it in a lot of detail, but you can remember like I felt really desired when I came home from work and you had already done all the dishes and you were making us a really nice dinner or something. If you don't know what love languages are, that can be another thing to look into. It's not necessarily about desire, but it can be a good way of knowing how to express to your partner, for your partner to express to you, I guess, in this scenario, that they care about you and want to make you feel good in the relationship. Because even if it's like, you want to feel desired, but they're not really open for sex, like, that could also just be like other types of non-sexual physical touch. That could be spending quality time together. That could be them doing things for you around the house. That could be helping you with work or projects. Like, it could be a lot of different things. But it just sounds like from your question that maybe what you're hoping for is like being sexually desired from an ace person, and I don't know how possible that is to do. I'm just making sure I haven't missed any follow-ups to this. Everyone's talking about J.K. Rowling. I got everyone sidetracked. Yeah, I know it's a complicated question. You can also, if you go online, there's lots of charts you can look at for like feelings charts. And they'll have literally hundreds of words on them that are organized by different like subcategories. And if you're having trouble, articulating the feeling that you either want to have or have had in the past, other than just like I want to feel desired, looking at one of those like really big long lists, or like sometimes it's like a sort of a wheel shape. If you can look at one of those, that might be able to help you more identify the more particular like subcategories of feelings you're trying to go for, and then just like be open to experimenting with what it is that maybe helps you feel that way, and kind of just go off of intuition and just sort of plan to be like, we're gonna experiment with this and see what this does. Mm. I want to feel wanted as a person, but I don't know how to convey that without sounding like a jerk. That I'm currently miserable when I'm not. Oh, yeah, yeah. No worries. Okay, I just want to clarify that it's not like, if it's sexual desire, that's obviously not. I don't think it'll work in this situation. But yeah, I think you totally deserve, like, if you're with a romantic partner and you want to feel desired as a person, I think having that love language identified, there's quizzes out there you can take to identify what your love languages look like. Maybe that means you need verbal affirmation from them. Maybe that means you like gifts. Maybe it means you need like non-sexual physical touch and affection, or cute little notes left around the house, or them doing the laundry for you and making sure the bed gets made, like whatever it is. Um, I think that can be a lot of help. But I understand the struggle. Like, that's even when you are in a relationship that's really bonded, in the day to day relationship, it can be hard to feel appreciated or feel wanted. I think what they said is they forget about sex. And they specifically said their partner is ace and not demi. But I'm happy to be corrected if they would like to correct me on the specific type of asexual that their partner is. Hmm. Sorry, there's just like I'm trying to make sure I'm seeing all this particular person's things. Um, they do enjoy sex when we have it and have expressed wanting it more often, but ADHD makes it so. Fuck. I'm just sorry. I'm just having trouble keeping up with like all of the separate messages here. I wish I could just like filter the chat by like one person's messages. That if we aren't talking about it all the time, I'll just forget it's a thing. But then I feel annoying being like, hey, is this a thing you're into? Because I feel unwanted. I mean, that's being with an asexual. I don't know what to tell you. Like, unless my partners are constantly bugging me about sex, I also forget about it. Like, I don't think to myself through the day, God, you know what? It would be really nice if I got railroaded right now. Like, it's almost never a thought that I have. Like 364.5 days out of the year, I'm not thinking that. So I get it. I'm not sure how much of that is an ADHD thing versus an ace spec thing. But also, like, physical enjoyment of sex is not the same thing as being asexual. I feel like I should clarify this because I am the resident asexual in this conversation. Just because you are physically capable of having an orgasm or having like biological pleasure from sex does not mean that you experience sexual attraction, or that having sex is important to you, or that you have a high libido, or literally anything else. Because a lot of ace people, especially ace people with penises, are perfectly able to have orgasms and, enjoy the physical motions of having sex, but not having a mental desire around it, not having it be a priority, not really experiencing attraction, but being able to perform like in the moment for a partner. And just because you physically enjoy something doesn't mean you have like doesn't mean that you experience like sexual attraction either, because it's a basic biological thing. I mean, some ace people like do not get anything out of sex whatsoever and do not respond to it literally at all, and it's like trying to have sex with cardboard. But for most people, because most people that are on the asexual spectrum have functional genitals, have perfectly normal hormone levels, all, nerve endings are all in the order they should be. Like, they are still able to experience like physical pleasure from sex without necessarily the other components that for a non-ace person all kind of get clumped together. I don't know why you're laughing. Ace people can actually enjoy sex though. Well, I think I just said that. Like, didn't I just say that ace people can physically enjoy sex, but like exactly, you just forget about sex. Like, I don't know. It's like it's nice when it starts happening, but you don't really think about it until it starts happening. Yeah, I know it's hard. Like, Aloe and Ace relationships are difficult because there is that mismatch, and I have found that my own relationships have struggled because people sometimes assume that because I don't have sexual desire for them that I can't really want to be in a romantic relationship with them, or I don't really care about them, or I don't really want them in some other fashion because my brain doesn't think about sex very often. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I think, understanding that maybe that need for being desired isn't going to be met through traditional sexual means. There are lots of alternatives to that. I think are actually more effective, perhaps, than simply being like, I need to feel desired, which means I need you to want to fuck me. For some people, that's the only thing they need, and they need to feel sexually desired, and they are deeply unhappy when they don't feel sexually attracted to a partner. But if you're open to alternatives to that, then you got lots of options for experiencing that. You just have to, experiment and see what works. No idea why that last message was blocked. Anyways, it is 5 after, so I think it is time to wrap up here because I would like to reheat a waffle. All right, so thank you all so much for being here. I think we got through some really good questions today. Like I said, I am in the process of updating the resource list, so look out for that. There's lots of new books and other things to add, which is exciting. And there will be a video coming out tomorrow. Look out for that. If you have not already and you want to make sure to see my other live streams and videos, please do subscribe and have the notification bell turned on because that is how you make sure you get notified for all these live streams. Again, thank you all so much for being here. Have an amazing rest of your Friday as well as the rest of your weekend. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye.